everyone. I am still Chris Gazdick. He is Mr. Craig Graves. I am a mental health and substance abuse therapist. Do have a book coming available soon, sometime forever from now, in March, I guess. Rediscovering Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self. Craig's an unbeatable mind coach, and we welcome you to Through a Therapist's Eyes, the podcast. See the world through the lens of a therapist and a coach, being aware this is not the delivery of therapy services in any way. Check out the website throughatherapistseyes.com, where you can get full show transcriptions. We are Craig kind of reborn. We're re at it. Weekly shows. You do help the show grow, so please help us with that. Put comments out on social media. Put us on automatic download. That helps our numbers. It helps this become a better and actual business. So, Mr. Graves, this is the human emotional experience. What shall we do, says you?
Let's figure it out together.
All right. We got a lot to cover. Man, it's actually really cool to not have guests. We have had so many guests lately. Would you agree?
We had some good ones. I've enjoyed the conversations, man.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. But it is fun just to be kind of back on the mics, just you and me kicking stuff around. And we're going to have 2 in a row that way. Got some excellent guests coming up, though, really. I got a beat on the ketamine thing. And you know what I got a beat on today?
What's that?
Cults.
Really?
Yeah.
That should be interesting.
Way. So, I got a new term for you today, man.
So real quick though, what is ketamine? Is that the psychedelic?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about that.
And I keep on saying ketamine. That it's a close compound. They do something else, and I just forget what it's called. But it's kind of locked in my brain that way. But you would recognize the other more accurate compound name than what I'm just kind of blanking on right now. But we got a new term for you: news blues.
News blues. Can't wait to hear what this one is.
I think it's something that we're all experiencing. I'm gonna do a current event, and we do our shows and post them and kind of stay present with what we're doing, so we can comment on current events and things that are going on in real time. Partly, but mostly by design. And we did the show on racism stuff, and shared with the audience. I don't know if I shared the 2-week thing.
No.
Yeah, I've been talking about it with my clients a lot. I hear so many people, Craig, they're talking about, hey, the media's bad, it messes with your mental health. I know. All I do is I watch 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. Yeah, you hear people talking about that?
I've heard similar things.
A lot of that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of calling for more than that. I'm finding my people are really struggling. People are just, we're wore out. We have compassion fatigue is a term. And
compassion fatigue.
Yeah. Burnout. That's what we're going to talk about next show.
Yeah.
And I think we're all feeling it is my point, and I'm calling for something more. I mean, if you really want to deal with mental health and you're realizing that the social media is driving you nuts and the news media is really kind of getting at you, man, I'm calling for people, and I've had several people I've challenged in my therapy room to take 2 full weeks, man. There ain't nothing going to happen that you really need to know about. 2 full weeks, and don't watch anything. I mean, I'm not talking about morning. I'm not talking about nightly news. I mean, even the weather for that matter, right? Like, just really, and that was the best 2 weeks I had in a while. After
best 2 weeks of my life.
So that's a suggestion for all y'all out there. I don't think cutting it down to a small amount daily is really good enough. I really feel like we need more when we have identified I'm getting wore out from this stuff. 2 solid full weeks.
That's probably not a bad idea. Just a complete fast is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
No news completely.
Now, I failed the night Kamala came out and was on the ticket. I actually failed during that 2 weeks. I popped on for 5 minutes, and I actually was disappointed with myself that I knew who was picked as the vice president candidate.
Yeah.
But that was like towards the end of my 2 weeks.
Yeah, we've talked about media. We were just talking about that before we started recording. It'd be cool to have Roger back on to talk about media again. Man, I'm concerned about the country, the way the media reports news, and it's
being more and more of a problem.
Dude, it's a huge problem in my opinion. Like Donald Trump or not, John McCain, before he passed away, he said that Trump's attacks on the media were the biggest threat to our democracy. Yeah. And I disagree with the late senator. I think the biggest threat to our democracy is the media itself, because I think the reporting is so biased and one-sided, and they twist it, and that I think is influencing people's thinking in the wrong way. They're basically pushing an agenda, and you really got to dig under the covers to get the truth.
Yeah, and I've talked about that many times as of late, and I agree it's being twisted around and just used very poorly. I think also attacking the media is also a dangerous plot line. I go both ways, so I do agree with the late senator to a certain extent, because we can't just banish the media as something that serves a huge psychological purpose, cultural purpose for our society. We can't just get rid of it. But the way that it's operating and the way that we are, calling fake news just because it doesn't agree with I hate the term fake news. It's a bad term, and it's a platform in the media that is used totally for agenda. I think it's all problem.
Yeah, I you know what? I'm pretty hard on the media on the podcast when we talk about it, but I don't want to banish it. And I'd said this when we had Roger on. I just want it to be fair.
Yeah.
I want the people on the major news networks to be as hard on the Democrat as they are on the Republican, and
Absolutely.
vice versa. But you watch these shows, and they throw these Democratic people softballs, and then they're calling out these Republicans. Man, I mean, you can see it clearly. You can see the bias very clearly.
Yeah, I almost don't want them to be hard or soft. I just want them to be factual.
I want them to be fair.
Just
fair and factual.
Equal
yes.
and factual. That's it.
Yeah, fair and factual.
I mean, we're going down a bunny hole, but that's okay because it's part of the current event, and it's part of my news blues. The days long ago when you and I remember when we were kids, I mean, one of the most trusted people in America, and you know who he was, right?
Yeah, Walter Cronkite.
Right.
But the difference was we had local news from 6 to 6:30, national news from 6:30 to 7.
Yeah.
Then we watched the Jeffersons or Archie Bunker, God help us. Can you imagine if the Jeffersons or Archie Bunker were on TV today?
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine?
So I got news blues.
Speaking of mental health issues.
Yeah, let's move on. I mean, because the news blues has hit me today. I mean, we got so much going on, man, and it's just it'll get you. I mean, a hurricane. We have a mutual friend I connected with. I'm looking forward to catching a word of okay. I haven't gotten one today, and
yeah, he's fine. I talked to him.
Good.
Yeah.
I did not get.
Yeah,
he didn't
fine.
get back with me. That's good because we got a hurricane, and that isn't even barely on the headlines, and the conferences, the conventions, the pandemic, and yet here we go again. We got a show. Thank you, Neil, for getting that together because I was swamped today, and he's got on our show notes a Wall Street Journal podcast where the current event of a police shooting in Wisconsin reignites the protest is the title of the show, and I want to refer the audience to it because I think it does a pretty good description of what happened. I'm actually not totally up on it, but their advertised description of their show reads as such. Last night was the second night of fires and protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin, following a police shooting of a black man there. WSJ's Aaron Allenworth describes what it's like on the ground and how the death of George Floyd factors into how these new protests are playing out. I mean, here's a quote, Craig. I thought it was apropos and perfectly fitting from where we went before. Martin Luther King Jr., quote, "The limitations of riots, moral questions aside, is that they cannot win and their participants know it. Hence, rioting is not revolutionary but reactionary because it invites defeat. It involves an emotional catharsis, but it must be followed by a sense of futility," unquote. And I went back to that because fires and protests, and I heard part on the show, guys saying, if the whole United States needs to burn down, that's what we need to do. People are frustrated, they're angry, and I get it. It was a horrible scene again. And I know a lot of people are hurting out there in a way that, in many ways that I can't even comprehend, being who I am. But it just sucks to see that again. And I don't think, and I'm sorry, audience, I'm a little unprepared because I don't even have the gentleman's name. I do understand that he is still alive and he's paralyzed. So we'll be able to hear from him, more than likely. And that's going to be an interesting part of all this. So and I know people are recovering now from a hurricane. We're recording this on the 27th.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's touch back on that for just 1 second. I don't think of these things as protests. I think of these things as riots.
Yeah.
And speaking of the news media, so I'm looking at a New York Post article. It says CNN blasted for caption calling Kenosha protest fiery but mostly peaceful. These are riots, folks. And the people in our world who have made the biggest impact have been men like Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. How many buildings did Martin Luther King burn, or how many buildings did Mahatma Gandhi burn?
I'm not an expert, but I'm going to
Zero.
suggest
They
none.
were peaceful protesters who made a huge impact on our own society and on the world in general. So the way this is happening is being done.
Not good.
It's not. It's not going to make any change. It's just going to continue to divide people. So if people genuinely won't change, we need to move back into a more peaceful mode of getting that point across.
Agreed. But change needs to happen. And I hope that we, and do believe that we as a society can shed progress on this situation. I am an eternal hopeful person, and I believe in that, and I believe in our country, and I believe in the things that people are struggling with. As I started to say, there's a hurricane, and people are hurting financially with the pandemic, and physically people are knowing people. I know people that have been very terribly sick, afraid of being sick, which I hope fear is not driving this all, guys. I have a colleague that lost somebody, down in Florida, and it's just, it's real. And so I thought, apropos with all of this stuff going on, I thought, what a good time to go all about mental health strategies. I really hope that people find this episode helpful, because I think that it's something that we really need to be steeped in, engrossed with, ever presently mindful about. How was that for some words? Sometimes this stuff just comes to me, right? To live it and to manage it. So, because if we don't, it manages us. The guy that said that on the interview, I'd be willing to say he would hear his comments played back and be like, yo, when he calms down, that's not what I meant. Burn the country to the ground. I mean, come on. If you feel like that, you probably don't even be living here. Number one, but that's pretty radical. But when your emotions on fear and anger are driving decisions and behavior, people will do it, and that's scary and not helpful. I don't know. Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, my news blues kind of got me today a little bit, man. I ain't gonna lie. I was just like, dude, it's too much right now.
I think that's a great idea. If you're out there listening and you take Chris's, let's pose it as a challenge. We challenge our listeners to do a 2-week news fast, and then let us know how that goes.
Agreed.
Yeah, just notice the change in your mental health. If you take 2 weeks off from news, no news for 2 weeks, not even a headline.
No weather.
I guarantee you won't die.
No.
Right, you'll survive. And you may be pleasantly surprised about the space between your ears at the end of that.
I felt it. I really did. And you know what? The Republican National Convention, it's done tonight. And that's fine. So, there's really nothing. I mean, I understand you might want to see the debates. You want to be informed. Want to know what's going on. Starting today, whatever I guess isn't going to air today, but somewhere around after August 27th, there ain't much going to be going on in the next 2 weeks that you have got to know.
Yeah, right. I agree. And I do think people should do their homework before this election. And, don't be afraid to look at news sources you wouldn't normally look at, so you can find out what these people really stand for. Whether you're a Biden-Harris or a Trump-Pence, I mean, dig down, because you really don't always get the true story.
Is that what it is? Biden, Harris, Trump, Pence. That's the first time I actually thought of that yet this year. That's the bumper stickers we're going to see.
That's it.
Mr. Graves, I got a question for you. Put him on the spot. He's been doing this for a minute. What is the corner? Don't look at the cheat sheets there. What is the cornerstone of mental health?
The cornerstone of mental health is self-care.
Dude, did you get it from the look, or did you? I was about ready to help you. I felt bad.
Actually, I did see that. I looked at the notes earlier. But I would have probably known that anyway.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, because it is a big part of mental health strategies. So to get into this topic, I get people all the time, Craig, that come to therapy and they will make some kind of statement or some kind of question. They got a presenting problem or an area of their life that they want to focus on and stuff. And I will oftentimes very much get people say, I want some strategies. I want you to give me some strategies, some things to think about in how to deal with this, whatever the pronoun might be. And right off from the get-go, I've said, and I've probably said on this show, actually, if you guys are following, you can Google lists. You can get a good list. Actually, I was kind of surprised when I was doing show prep that you kind of can't. There's not really like a strong, full, big list out there, to be honest with you.
Of what? Of self-care?
Of mental health strategies.
Sounds like an opportunity for you, sir.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, 5 lists to manage stress. 7 strategies to cope with anxiety. I mean, you got all these articles out there, but dude, there's more than that. Well, these guys are looking at me like did I just booger myself into a blog, guys? Neil, don't hold me to that, man.
Wow, you can write a book on this topic.
Actually, you really can. Well, I kind of did. So real quick, I don't know if I talk about the other parts of the 3 cares. The self-care is the cornerstone of mental health. There's relationship care and physical care. And those are the 2 other components. Call them the friendly 3. Self-care, we've talked about fun, relaxing, enjoyable activities that are relaxing and distracting, rather, from life stress. And they're not self-destructive in any way, and they're not work-related tasks.
Yeah. Chris, run back through that list of priorities that we talked about.
God, self, spouse, kids, family, friends, work on the bottom.
Yeah, self was number 2, right? So we get that wrong a lot. We put kids or spouse ahead of ourselves. But what you're saying is put the mask on yourself before you help the person beside you, right?
Yeah, we did a lot on that. Really, from the very beginning of our show, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
And God not in the picture. If you're not a religious-oriented person, okay, self's at the top of the list, and we tend to put our spouse before us or our kids before us, and yeah, we could go on that for a while. But relationship care is the same thing as self-care. It's just done with other people. And physical care is all those things taking care of our body. Got to have the nutrition. You believe that, right?
Oh yeah.
Got to have the exercise. Oh, I know you believe that, right?
Absolutely.
You got to have the sleep. Right?
Sleep is probably the cornerstone of physical health, in my opinion.
Really? That's a cool
statement. I would say that. Yeah, because, if you don't sleep well, especially as I get older, dude, if I don't sleep, I physically hurt, man. It's, it's miserable. We should do a show on sleep and mental health at some point.
Mr. Neal, I think we have Mr. Graves here held accountable for writing about that as an awesome quote.
What? Sleep is the cornerstone
of physical health?
Yeah. It probably is.
That is a takeaway right there. I've never thought of that, and I think you're dead on.
Lack of sleep used to be a badge of honor, but these days, man, everybody you listen to in the health world says, hey, get some sleep.
You know what? That's true. Absolutely. It used to be a badge of, I only need 3-4 hours of sleep.
And I'm good to go.
And I've always been funny about that, man. I've always been a 9-hour guy, to be honest with you, and I just don't get that anymore.
I got to have my sleep, man. It's like that Kramer, the Seinfeld episode. Remember that one where Kramer busts in? Oh, I'm on no sleep.
He's
all wired up.
Jacked up, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It is a good one. Mr. Graves, tell us about breathing. That's a big number 2 on our list. We had talked about doing a whole show on it, which, by the way, we could probably really do a whole show on any one of these, to be honest with you. But
we could probably do, and probably should do, a breathing show. I've talked about breath before on the show as it relates to The Unbeatable Mind, but I've been reading a great book, Chris, called Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art. It's by a guy named James Nestor. And I heard him on Joe Rogan and also on Ben Greenfield. And he's talking about the importance of breathing through the nose and all the health benefits that we get by nostril breathing. Now, most people are chronic mouth breathers. They're breathing through the mouth. But there's all these different things that happen. Nitrous oxide production when we breathe through the nose. It's fascinating. And I haven't read enough about it to give you a list of all the things he talks about, but he talks about mental health a lot. Some therapists use breath to treat anxiety, depression.
Hugely so.
Even schizophrenia, Chris. I mean, he talks about one therapist in there who's used breath to, I don't know if cut down or exactly what happened, but this patient got relief from schizophrenia just by nostril breathing, changing their nostril breathing patterns.
Yeah. I mean, it's a core part of anything that you do. I mean, if you're doing hypnosis, you do breathing. If you're doing guided imagery, you're doing breathing. If you're doing relaxation, you're doing breathing. If you're doing self-care, you probably want to incorporate breathing. I mean, it's a core piece.
It's a core piece, man. And people who are listening probably say, yeah, breath. I've been breathing my whole life, But the thing is we're not breathing correctly. We're breathing either too much. Most people breathe 16 to 20 times per minute, which kind of puts us into a fight or flight response state. Whereas we should be breathing much less, which brings us back down into that, I think it's alpha, right?
Not sure what you mean.
More relaxed state. If we're over-breathing, it puts us into a more heightened state, which taps into our sympathetic nervous system. Relaxed breathing, controlled relaxed breathing, and less breathing brings us back down into that parasympathetic state and relaxes us. If we're in the heightened state, high blood pressure, anxiety, other health issues start coming up, and that's where most of us live on a daily basis, in 16 to 20 breaths per minute. So you can imagine what happens to our bodies over a period of time.
That's huge.
In that heightened state.
I want to challenge you, Craig. I want to hear so much more about what you read about to do that, because we do need to do a whole show on this stuff, and there's a lot there, and I think there's a lot more in your head than even you probably realize. Listen to how intelligent this makes me sound. The main effects of slow breathing techniques cover anatomic central nervous system activities as well as the psychological status. Slow breathing techniques promote autonomic changes, increasing heart rate variability and respiratory sinus arrhythmia paralleled by the central nervous system activity modifications. EEG studies actually show an increase in what you were talking about, alpha, and a decrease in theta power. Automatically, the only available fMRI study highlights increased activity in cortical, example, prefrontal motor and parietal corticals as brain parts, and subcortical, example, pons, thalamus, subbranchial nucleus. I was doing so good. Whatever, gray matter basically in the brain. Right. And the hypothalamus structures, right? Psychological and behavioral outputs relate to the above aforementioned changes in increased comfort, relaxation, pleasantness, vigor, and alertness, and reduced symptoms and arousal, anxiety, depression, anger, and confusion. Now, I partly read that, honestly. I always get on you for reading, but to kind of make the point with those words and that information, if you play that back, that's what you were just talking about in your own words, like deep, powerful, fundamentally biological realities in the brain. So to parrot what you were saying, people do not realize, I do not realize when I'm working with people with breath, how much in depth that influences the way you feel.
Oh, it's fascinating. The book I'm reading, I'm about halfway through. It's really, really fascinating, some of the stuff that James Nestor's talking about in there, and about how important it is to breathe through the nose, and how ancient cultures for years have been, thousands of years have been nose breathers. Native Americans, there's another book that was written in the mid-1800s by a guy who went out west and visited 150 different tribes in North and South America. And the common thing between all these tribes is these folks nose breathed.
Okay.
So much so that the mothers would hold the baby's mouth shut at night to force them to nose breathe and do other things to
learn how to breathe properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to learn how to breathe properly. And there's science going back that tells us that too much mouth breathing changes the structure of our faces and our skulls. So like crooked teeth, if a kid has really crooked teeth, that's probably a result of chronic mouth breathing. I mean, it's fascinating, really fascinating what he's talking about in there.
I want more of that.
And if you guys have been listeners for a while, you remember when you and I had the conversation, you said, "Hey, what are you doing? You seem calmer."
Yep.
And that was just basically from upping my breathing practice, So I get up in the mornings and do 20 minutes of a box breathing practice. And I try to do that every day. I don't always get it in.
What happened to you being calmer?
Huh? Yeah, I know, right? It's out the window.
Just
All this
kidding.
coronavirus and news medias, and we got to take a news break, man.
Tell us real quick about box breathing. Try not to take too long because we've already gone a long time on this, and there's so much more to get to. This is number 2. Self-care, number 1. Breathing, number 2. Hold on, Craig. And there's also 4, 7, 8 breathing. Exhale through the mouth to 8 count. Inhale through the nose, 4 count. Hold breath for 7 counts. What is box breathing?
Yeah, so box breathing, you just inhale to a predetermined count. So if it's 5, you inhale to a count of 5. You hold for a count of 5. You exhale to a count of 5.
And what next?
And then you hold at the bottom for a count of 5.
We always forget that one.
And then you repeat. And, I do that 20 minutes per day.
Yeah, and I think the point that I would make is there really are. I always get frustrated. Maybe it's part of my personality. You end up conferences and breathing comes up and they kind of tell you exactly how to breathe. Okay, use your mouth, purse your lips, make a sound. And that's all good and fine. That's good stuff, and I'm not down anything. Breathing deeply in whatever 4x4x4, 3x5x7, whatever way you kind of want to come, because there are a lot of different meditative practices and breathing strategies, I would bet.
Oh, there are. Yeah.
I think biologically it's really just breathing slowly and deeply. It's powerful.
Through the nose.
Yeah.
Yep, through the nose.
And that I didn't know. That's actually, you've been talking about that lately.
One more thing I'll throw in is this is new to me too, but email apnea. So when we're sitting in front of a screen or a device, we tend to hold our breath, which puts us in a sympathetic state, fight or flight state. So if you're at a cube or at a desk or on your phone quite a bit, chances are you're probably holding your breath too much. So be mindful of that. So check in with yourself, make sure you're breathing, or take work 15, 20 minutes, take a break, 5 minutes, and just make sure that you're breathing correctly, and then go back to work. But holding that breath and breathing incorrectly for so long is just a recipe for disaster, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And, I'll throw it out here this way, too. If you're not going to do a Mr. Craig Graves breathing practice type thing like you're talking about every day or whatever, I understand. Just start with this. Whenever you feel yourself worked up, nervous, anxious, something, simply just take one big, heavy, as much air as you can get in your belly, down, expanding your whole chest, and just hold that for a couple seconds. And then maybe even imagine that feeling that you're trying to get rid of is mixing with the air, and blow it out. Yeah. You do that just one breath, one deep, that helps in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wouldn't start with 20 minutes, Chris. If you haven't done this, start with 5 minutes. And if you have questions about the process, then go to the website and send me an email, and I'll respond and help you out.
Number 3, journaling. It is a strategy. And the way these things came to me, by the way, is just as I was brainstorming and whatnot. These aren't in any order, but these are the orders that kind of came to my mind. Maybe something subconscious was talking to me about that. Because exercise was number 4. That probably should have been a little higher, but this isn't in any order. Lots of journaling methods, just like there are lots of breathing methods.
Absolutely.
There really are. But I wanted to kind of make some points about that in the way of where I really started getting an understanding of this, honestly, is a bit of a personal experience, Craig. Listen to this. So everyone has sleepless nights and has things that, get them worked up and upset and whatnot. Well, so one of these nights, it's been several years ago, really. And I just, had it on my mind, and I got up and I don't know. I was like, all right, let me practice what I preach. Just crap. I was kind of fired up, whatever. So I got a piece of paper out. I'm like, all right, that's stupid. I ain't doing that. So I got my computer. Just started, tapping down some stuff.
You got to write it down, man.
Nah, I know. But usually that's what I started with, but I didn't. So anyway, to make a long story short, I started just writing things out. And what I did is just the thoughts that I had, the feelings that I had, got another paragraph, wrote more on there, kind of kept going to the third paragraph. Then I read down through it, and I kind of, checked out what I said, and then I added a few more sentences, and then I changed the sentence, and I edited it, and then I kind of read through it again. I realized, wait a minute, I missed that thought, and I went up to the second paragraph and indented and made another paragraph, and kind of went down and read it through again, made a couple more edits, I read it through, and I read it through. And ironically, about 35, 40 minutes of doing this. You know what I did next?
Went to sleep?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And I woke up and I began thinking about that. Like, what happened there? And I just started thinking. If I hadn't gone down to do that, what would have happened? Well, I'd have done the same thing. I'd have sat there and I'd have thought, and I'd have thought, and I'd have thought the paragraph and thought another paragraph, and then I thought, oh, wait, that wasn't right. You got to change that in my head. And I went down there and thought that, changed that, and that, and we'll review it all, and I would say it again, and then I would add in more things, and and then I'd go down and read it again, and read it again, and I'd edit, and I'd change, and I'd edit, and what would you call this after you read it? Think about it, think about it, think about it, think about it. What do you call it? Your monkey brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Journaling, writing things down, immediately arrests that process. Because when you read it 3 times through, there's nothing to edit, nothing to move, nothing to reorder, nothing to change. That's what we're doing in our head.
Yeah.
Well, you press print.
It kind of purges those thoughts from your head and puts them onto that paper, and they're gone.
Even if they're not gone, I'm suggesting press print, and it's there in the morning.
Yeah.
And you know that. I want to remember the work that I just did. I don't want to forget the work that I just did if I don't write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to think about it again and again and again. And when I wake up, I'm probably going to think about it again because I don't want to miss that emotional work that I did. When you write it down,
yeah,
it's always there. So I just wanted to kind of point that out in a real way, in the way that functionally journaling works, and what occurred to me when I did that one particular night, and how effective it was, because it was off my mind for the rest of the night. I slept like a charm.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, what I would add to that, or I would say about that, I'm glad you did that. I think that's awesome. If you're going to do those kind of things, you might have a journal by your bed and write it down. That light coming off the monitor can mess with your sleep. You know, that can be a bad thing. But I like where you're going with it. You know, the way I use journaling is as I get up in the morning, and after I do, or actually before I do this breathing practice we just talked about, then I do some journaling, man. I write down some things I'm grateful for. You know, there's some science behind being grateful and how that changes your brain and your attitudes. So I write down, I have kind of a gratitude practice I go through. Then I write down some things that I'm looking forward to doing that day to kind of prime myself to, hey, I got some good stuff going on today, you know? I kind of write down what my purpose is in there so I can keep that in the front of my mind. So I'm kind of writing down some stuff that preps me for that particular day. And then in the evening, I kind of do a little recap. You know, what are the 3 most positive things that happened to me today? You know, even if I had a crappy day, then I can figure out 3 good things, right? And then maybe the day doesn't seem so bad, right? Maybe it might be a good day after all. I just thought it was bad. Then I also write down what I could have done differently. You know, I might have snapped at my kid, you know. I might write that down.
Right.
You know? Whatever it is that you could do differently. You know, what do you like about yourself? There's one thing you like about yourself, right? Write that down.
Well, there's a couple.
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2, right?
Maybe.
Write that down, man. And then what are you looking forward to doing tomorrow? And that kind of starts getting your mind prepped about, you know, getting a good night's rest and getting up tomorrow and getting after it. So that's kind of how I use my journal too. It's kind of a way to prep my day, and then kind of a way to recapitulate it.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, Craig, do you actually practice what you coach?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Don't you
I know, right?
what you preach over
I
there,
try.
Kirsten?
Absolutely. Well, you saw me playing a little self-care item before we even started today. I've kind of had a hairy day, right?
Yeah.
You really do need to practice these things.
Yeah. The cool thing about the way I coach, Chris, is I'm telling people to do things that I'm doing,
Right.
or that I have done that I know works.
Yeah, that's
At least for me,
pretty cool.
in my experience. So yeah, I practice what I preach.
You want a weird journaling thing I want to throw out there to people? So check this out. This is almost creepy. I'll invite the audience just to try this once. Because I got this in a conference, and I think that I've got it pretty close, if not exactly to what they approach, but it's just by memory. So somebody's out there, and this is a documented approach or whatever that I screwed up. Please let me know. But I think I'm pretty close, if not exact. You start out with this journaling activity, where it almost kind of the goal is it's actually going to let your almost your subconscious tell you what's going on, and what you're working on, and what the primary thing, in a very concise way. So you start out with free writing. You know what free writing is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just write whatever the heck comes to your mind. I mean, you
Yes.
might sit there for 30 seconds and have nothing, or 2 minutes and have nothing, just what's in your mind, you literally just start writing down what your thoughts are. You can't go that long without having a thought in your head.
Oh, yeah.
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 Right? So you just write down free thought, whatever the heck's on there. It just comes out. And you do that for about 5 minutes or so. And then you stop. A period of time. Maybe you go 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Make sure that you have some stuff you wrote down. We'll call it 10, 15 minutes. And then after you're done, you just read through and you circle 10 key words, right? And then when you're done with that, you whittle that down and go to about 4. We'll call it 4 or 5 key words from those 10. And then you write a sentence using all of those words. It is really pretty neat. Like, it tripped me out when I did it. I was like, okay, that's exactly what I'm working on.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
And it's creepy because your subconscious is really working on stuff.
I got to try that one, yeah.
All the time, and we don't realize it, but our brain's working for us, Dr. Spickler taught us.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. You know, all the time I think about that show. I do.
You do talk about it a lot.
I really do.
One of the questions, and if you do what I'm doing, you might have predefined questions that you answer every day and every evening. And so one of the questions in the evening is, what's an unresolved problem or challenge that I want my subconscious mind to work on while I'm sleeping?
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right.
Listen, there really, as you can tell, and we can go on. I'm going to cut this because I want to get to some other things. But you could tell, like, we can go on with that a little deeper because there really are multiple methods, and there are many ways to go about it. I didn't even say you might get into lists, dream journals and
a thing called morning pages you can get off Amazon, and
trauma lines. I'll document people's trauma lines in therapy, through their ages or through their lives, But the point that I want to make is if you choose something and you begin to write it down, it makes it very crystallized and powerful in your life. It is one of the most effective things that you can do to cope with emotions. So much so, I think I said this on a show before, I heard it said that NASA astronauts use journaling as the most effective tool to manage their self on long space flights and experiences.
Wow, I've never heard that before.
Right?
That's pretty cool.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Because they're just writing stuff down. It can be that effective and apply to all sorts of areas of your life. So self-care, breathing,
journaling.
What's next?
Exercise.
Probably should have been first. What you think about that, Mr. Graves?
Yeah, I think it's great.
I don't like it.
I think it's awesome.
I'm just kidding. I do. Tell us why. Why would I have that on our list?
Well, because it does help mental health. I mean, scientifically, people who exercise are happier than people who do not. I mean, there's some chemical release going on there, and
lots.
I think there are some scientific studies that say 30 minutes of exercise can be just effective as or more effective than some of these drugs that are on the market. Is that a true statement?
I don't know I don't know if I'm going to agree with that or not. I'm going to agree with the fact that when Dr. Danny Morrison was talking to this, and I've quoted him many times over, actually since on episode 67. I didn't do a good job with that, by the way, as far as past episodes. I really need to. Now that we have it categorized on the website, I probably could do that a lot easier. Anyway, check out the website, everybody. Mr. Neal's been working hard on really bumping it up and making it easier to.
It's cool. I'm excited about it.
We're doing some really cool things on Through a Therapist's Eyes. Definitely want to check it out, everyone. So he talked about all around the world, that's the first line treatment choice.
Yeah, right.
First line.
Except here in the U.S.
Except in the United States. We go pills.
Yeah.
So I don't know which is more effective, to be honest with you, statistically or whatnot, but I'm going to say unequivocally, it is extremely effective, if not equally as effective, if not better than psychotropics, yeah. And I know you love that last part.
I do. I absolutely do. Dr. Morrison had a birthday or a work anniversary not long ago.
Did he really?
I wished him well on LinkedIn, yeah, if he's listening.
Oh, hey there, Mr. Morrison. Happy birthday. I didn't know that. I did not know that. I'm a big one with number 5, if we are on number 5. Friendship. Why would that be on a list of mental health strategies? Is that a strategy?
Just off the hip, I would say, because we're social creatures and we need social interaction, man.
Absolutely.
Is that where you're headed?
A lot of directions. We did a whole episode on friendship, and we need to do another one in some way because I feel like it's a crucial part of managing the way that we feel. I don't know where I'd be. And if I call you friend out there, it's an important word to me. I want you to know how much I value that. And I don't know where I'd be at this point without all you guys.
Man, you're a good friend, Chris,
you know?
dude.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
And I mean that, and you are one of them. I mean, it adds so much to managing your emotions that I don't even know how to dumb that down.
Yeah, when we did that first show on friendship, you said, we should make a graphic out of this. You said, friendship is the antidote to loneliness.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty powerful.
Thank you.
Evidently, if I still remember that, because that was a long time ago.
And I think that's one of the quotes in my book to give you an idea what the book is about, because that is something that I have thought about a lot.
We need to do a show on the book too and tell everybody what it's about.
Yeah, someday. I think that I like to say as well, in quotes with friendship, enemy number one. I've said this over and over again. I just said this 2 times, literally yesterday and today in my therapy sessions. Enemy number 1 to depression is isolation. Right? Depression gets exacerbated, terribly so, when you don't have friendship. Devastating. Absolutely devastating. Real quick sounding board, or real quick list, the myriad of ways that friendship, helps our mental health. They, operate as a sounding board. The validation of what your feelings and thoughts and opinions are. They give you objective feedback. They can act as accountability partners, and probably so many more. I didn't want to sit in there and stay stuck on that show prep part, but that was the list I came up with just thinking for literally like 30, 40 seconds. If you think of life without friends, is that fine? You got your family and you got your wife, but life really like without friends, what would that really be like?
That would kind of suck,
It really would.
We do need friends, man.
You wouldn't. First of all, you just get tired of people. It provides some freshness, some difference. Friends come and go in your life, and that's okay, everybody. You change friendships. You grow together and you go further apart. I just think they're so valuable. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit because I want to go on and on in this, but it's just
if you don't have any friends, go back and listen to that episode where we talk about friendship and how Chris made some friends. It was pretty interesting. I'd never thought about it before in this fashion, but basically, long story short, Chris came out of that 10-year span of having kids. What'd you call that?
The lost decade.
The lost decade. Realized he was a loser and didn't have any friends.
Whoa.
He said, hey, I'm going to go find some friends. And he intentionally, I'm just kidding,
I know.
He intentionally went out to make friends. Now, I've heard people intentionally go out to meet women or men or find a mate, whatever, but I'd never heard anybody be intentional about making friendships. And I thought that was really a pretty unique and pretty cool thing. So be sure to check that one out if you haven't.
Right, for the next one, nutrition.
Nutrition.
Right?
Yes.
I think that is a mental health strategy. Not going to spend much time there because, I'm a little bit ignorant to it. This is one of my weakest areas, to be honest with you, in working with people. Might have a beat on dietary concerns in mental health, too, by the way.
Yeah.
My PA student, we talk about that.
Well, we interviewed Dana Faddick.
Yeah.
Who eliminated, or
not
keto. Eliminated, but she started eating low-carb keto diets and realized her depression had gone away.
Anxiety, but her mood, chronicity of her mood was gone.
Yeah.
Like gone.
Yeah.
That was stunning.
That topic either, but I think you should do some more research on that.
It was stunning. I agree. Yeah, it's I admit a weakness. But they did say on here, I've got a website, helpguide.org, good foods, fatty fish, rich in omega-3s such as salmon, herring, mackerel, anchovies, tuna. Anchovies, oh my God, can't do it. Tuna, sardines, nuts such as walnuts, almonds, cashews, cashews. It does have peanuts on it. Y'all in our group told me to get rid of the peanuts and eat the almonds.
Almonds are better for you. They definitely are. Yeah, but if you're trying to eat a keto kind of diet, then I think peanuts are keto.
Avocados, flaxseed, and beans. Bad foods, caffeine, oh dear. Alcohol, trans fat, or anything with, what is that? Hydrogenated. High partiality? I don't even know what that is. Or maybe I have a typo.
I think you had a typo.
Yeah,
it's partially hydrogenated. Basically, that's the same thing as a trans fat, too.
Don't laugh at me, Neil.
Yeah.
Bad is oils, foods with high levels of chemical preservatives or hormones, sugary snacks, refined carbs such as white rice or white flour, fried food is bad. There are a lot of very overwhelming things about nutrition, and I think that's why I kind of steer away from it, because I get overwhelmed with it, and seems to be a lot of conflicted information out there. As a matter of fact,
there is too.
You gave me that Ben Greenfield show to listen to the other day. Started listening to it. I don't know what half of his words are, man.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting character.
I really felt stupid. I was like, you got to be kidding me. What does that mean?
I'm not a nutritionist, but I was watching Joe Rogan the other day, and there were a couple of guys on there, and one of them was arguing for vegetarian-based diets, and the other guy was telling why it wasn't good. And it was like a 3-hour conversation of these guys talking, and I'm thinking, that's ridiculous, Yeah. Just find what works for you and go with that. And as long as you're eating fruits, vegetables, and healthy meats, you're probably going to be fine.
And listen to your body. I think mindfulness has a part to play here.
I agree with you.
Being aware of how you feel when you eat said thing.
Yeah.
You'll probably catch allergies, by the way, to food when you do that.
Yeah, I think if people looked at, well, I guess people can't see these show notes, but what you just said, the good foods and the bad foods you just read, apart from the caffeine, if you stuck with those good foods and avoid those bad things, you'd be fine.
Yeah. I think so, really. And well, we can go on. I don't really consider myself a super expert on that anyway. So anything else on that? Because I know you think about that stuff a lot more than I do.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how to tie it to mental health.
Well, the way you feel and the physiological
the way
aspect.
You feel, yeah. Scientifically, I can't say, but if you're eating those good foods, you're probably going to be slimmer and trimmer and more active, which is going to lead you to be more, likely to do exercise or some form of physical activity, which is also going to help your mental health. So I'd say it's kind of a domino effect.
So what we got so far is self-care, breathing, journaling, friendship, exercise, and nutrition. And I'm just going to list the rest of them. And I want to see, Craig, which one you want to talk about, because this is a pretty good list, I think, of managing strategies of your mental health. Okay, so let's list these and see what we want to do with the rest of our time here. Does that sound all right?
The next one for a minute, yeah.
Okay, 1, 5, and 10-year plan. Okay, that's a life planning strategy.
Yeah, how do you?
Okay. Yeah, let's go through. We'll camp out on that one for sure. Having a pet, seriously, man's best friend, right? I think that's on a list. Visualization and visualization techniques. Thought we might demonstrate one, actually. Tension release techniques. Okay. Sensory answer to panic feelings. That is actually the strategy that we talked about with a panic attack, Craig. Mm-hmm. Avoiding using permanency words: forever, always, never, everyone, no one. Those are really, really bad. I would love if we just actually banished them, because 95% of the time, if not more, they are inaccurate, and we feel those feelings. It's really, really bad. Introspectively challenge our assumptions. From time to time, revisit stressful life events in memory. Courageously, be brave, do that. Attack any fear that you identify or notice in yourself. I do have some thoughts and a word on vacations. But Craig, I mean, insofar as just quickly and simply and sheer lists, do you have unbeatable mind things that you can add 5 more?
I don't think I can add 5 more. I think you've covered a lot of the big ones right here. I kind of wanted to go back to talk to us about having a purpose, Chris. How does that help our mental health?
I think I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit more on the next show, because it came up in my thinking when I did some thinking about burnout. That's what we're going to talk about next. You don't even have to wait to the end to find out where we're going next. Because purpose and having a purpose and a vision. I mean, any of the business planning, they always talk about having a vision, right? They talk about where are we going, and let's see it together, and let's get in. Mission statements are important. That's just basic mental health strategies. Because I didn't even think about that when I was doing this. But a very powerful thing that I was thinking about is a 1, 5, and 10-year plan, because it touches on those directional processes that we're trying to do as a group in a corporation, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm stuck on this. I'm curious what you think right here, Craig, because I have a difference with, I'm sorry, yeah, him himself. Remember Dan Miller was on our show. I have a bone with that. If you remember, he's like, you know what he said about all that? Having a plan, I said a 1, 5, and 10 year plan when we were talking. You remember how he thought about that?
I don't.
Yeah, he cut it down. People don't do that no more. Fast-paced society. No, we do a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. That's all people can handle.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I disagree.
Okay.
I really do. And I'd be curious what you think about that, because I'm developing, this is kind of real time in my therapy practice. The last year I've been thinking about, what is the value of a long-term perspective? First of all, if there is a value in that, I think it's pretty well lost, and that sucks. What is the value in having a long-term perspective on fill in the blank? And I think there's a lot there. I'm kind of working on it in my head. So I don't want to cut a 1, 5, and 10 year plan in looking at that. And by the way, my activity is pretty simple. I do it in therapy offices. Take a sheet of paper out. I go pen and paper. I go old school. Take the front sheet, whole sheet, and you go 1 year plan. Everything between now and 1 year you want to accomplish. Take the back sheet, 2/3 of the page or 3/4 of the page. Everything you want to accomplish between now and 5 years from now. And then the last third or the last quarter of the page is everything you want to accomplish between now and 10 years from now. It clarifies a lot. What says you? 1, 3, and 5, or 1, 5, and 10?
That's a good question. I probably would go with the 1, 3, and 5, just because the world changes so quickly now, just because the pace of change is so fast, that it's really hard to plan 10 years out. And if you're doing this planning session yearly, then you're probably going to start adjusting that 3 and 5 as you go. So if you sit down today, what's today? Today's August 27th, 2020. If you sit down today and you do a plan for the next 1, 5, and 10 years, it's not going to be in stone. You're going to have to review that plan
absolutely
on a 6-month or yearly basis. So I think if you're continually looking at it and refining it, maybe 5 years is as far as you want to go. Because there may be so much change. I mean, what's therapy going to look like in 10 years?
I'm prepared for this argument, man. I'm prepared for this.
Well, let's hear it.
So what has changed since society is fast-paced now about our human emotions? What has changed about the way we actually think insofar as processing data in our brains? That may have changed a little bit. I'm sure it has. But what really has changed about the way human beings operate in vision and planning? I submit to you, not as much as we would think, just because society moves faster.
Yeah, but so what is your 10-year? What is your 10-year plan?
Put me on the spot.
You don't have a 10-year plan, Chris?
Yeah. Well, I might not want to share that too. I don't know. I didn't really think about that. But
I don't think
you don't usually get me that way, man.
I don't think anything changes with the human emotions or behaviors. I mean, they hadn't changed in thousands of years, but just the way the world operates.
Yeah.
And when I think about purpose, and I think my purpose is to help people get to the next level, improve themselves. How am I going to be doing that? Is it through podcasting? Is it through writing, speaking, coaching? In 10 years, I don't know. The landscape may change such that the things I'm doing today are completely different in 10 years. I mean, you just look what COVID did to your perception of the way therapy works.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, yeah, I like to be face-to-face with a person. COVID has forced you into a situation where you're seeing at least some clients remotely, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you like that. You're
right.
pleasantly surprised that might be an option for you. So down the road, who knows what's going to happen to? So if your plan is to have an office in Mount Holly, North Carolina, and have 5 therapists working with you and have DW as a receptionist, you may not be able to have that reality in 10 years because the landscape in the therapy world may have changed so much between now and then that it's a completely different model.
I understand what you're saying. I'd submit to you, and I'll answer the question actually in that same way, because that's what I was thinking professionally. What do I want in 10 years from now? The 10-year part is what people get stuck on, and I don't think that there's a lot that you want to do in specifics. It's why it's only a quarter of one page or a third. I mean, at most, they're
Okay.
really broad strokes because it gives you a direction on what you're going to do. I'm not sure if it's in my 5 or 10-year plan, but I definitely want to be doing less clinical hours.
Yeah.
I want to be doing more professional speaking. I want to be doing more probable writing at that point and engaging in those types and these types of platforms. So that's definitely within 10 years. I do not want to be doing as much therapy as I'm doing, and I know that, and I don't think that's going to change.
Right.
So it's those types of things
It
that
probably
right?
won't change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I'm talking about. Like, what area of the country are you moving towards? What, when you're 20 years old, your 10-year plan, does that involve kids or does that not?
Yeah.
We want to. I think it's important to not lose that type of broad stroke
Yeah.
on what you're doing in your life.
I don't think so either. I think it's good to have to think about those things. But my point with the planning cycles was, if I have a 1, 3, and 5 now, then next year my 1, 3, and 5, I'll still have a 1, 3, and 5, but it's going to be
different.
it's going to be 26 instead of 25 at the end of the 5 years.
Mhm.
So it's going to be different, and the landscape may change. I mean, you may become a New York Times bestseller.
Mm-hmm.
And your book may take off such that, man, it changes your whole perception on how many hours you're going to spend in therapy and what you're going to be doing. So, trying to project 10 years out might
We're
be
definitely
just a little bit
adjust.
too much.
I mean, you definitely have flexibility, adjust and revisit it. But
Yeah.
it's bottom line. What did you tell me one day when we were talking, Craig? Or maybe you told it in our mastermind group. If you write down a goal, it becomes what?
A plan. It becomes a plan.
Well, how much more likely to happen?
Oh, yeah. Like 97% more likely to happen.
Is that the number?
I think it's,
97?
I think it's 97.
I thought it was like 70.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, a heck of a lot more likely than if you just spit it around in your brain.
Yeah, so let me see if I can remember this study without looking it up. So, I think it was in 1979. Harvard did they interviewed the graduating class. Let me think about this for a second. 3% had goals, and they had them written down. I think it was 13% had goals in their head, but no plan. They didn't have them written down or have a plan to get there. And then the rest of them didn't know what they were going to be doing, right? So the 13% that at least had a plan in their minds, they made double the amount of money that the other percent that didn't have any plan. They had double the money, double the income, right?
Interesting.
The 3% was making like 10 times more than the other two combined.
Wow. Harvard?
So, yeah.
Harvard study?
10 years later, they went back and re-interviewed that graduating class. And the 3% that actually had a plan were making 10 times more than the other two groups combined.
Yeah. And I believe it. There's a lot of power, again, in putting paper to pencil or typing. You want to have this out, just like we were talking about with journaling. I mean, these types of things they're really powerful. They work.
But how do you think having that purpose impacts somebody's mindset, their mental health?
I'm going to push that to next show, actually.
Okay, fair enough.
I really
fair
am.
enough. Let's talk about visualization next.
Yep.
Spend a minute on that. What you got there? How does that help us?
You tell me, because I know you know a lot about that.
Flipping it back on me, right? What I would say there is seeing yourself. Like, for example, one of the next thing that I do. So first of all, I read some scripture when I get up. Then I write in my journal. Then I do this box breathing. And then I do visualization. And like you're talking about this plan, I visualize myself achieving this purpose that I have for myself. I see myself down the road in that longer time frame, Craig. And then I see myself either focused on what I'm going to be doing next year or a specific thing that I'm working on. I might see myself as being very successful as a coach or completing a hard physical challenge that I've got lined up. And that prepares my mind for those events to happen in reality. And I'll tell you a story about another study that was done. So
if you see it, it will likely
be. It will likely happen. It sounds like law of attraction, wacky doodle stuff, but there's science behind this. So this study was done. They had three groups, and they did a baseline of these three groups taking free throws. Okay, so the first group,
like in basketball,
shooting free throws. Yeah, the first group, they got the baseline. They didn't do any shooting for 6 weeks. The second group actually shot baskets a certain amount of time per day.
Practice
physically. The third group just thought about it. They just
Really?
visualized themselves taking these shots.
This is fascinating.
So at the end of the 6 weeks, they did another study, or they did another baseline.
Right.
And the guys who didn't practice, they either stayed the same or they lost. The group that actually took the shots, they got 24% better.
That's pretty good.
And the group that just visualized themselves, Chris, they were 23% better without ever touching a basketball after 6 weeks of just visualizing themselves shooting.
Okay, well, I feel good about that because practice is something that we really believe. And I taught my kids. And so you're saying that equally as effective is simply visualizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Still surprising. I thought you were actually going to go higher than that. So that seems very, very valid.
Yeah, but they didn't touch the ball and still got 23% better.
Yeah, it's amazing. What would you do when you practice and visualize, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which is what they do.
Yeah.
In many NBA players' minds and golfers and people that have skilled positions, throwing quarterback balls, pitching. They all do that.
We watched that free solo, the Alex Honnold show, when he climbed El Cap. And I think we talked about that on one of our shows.
Yep.
And he climbed, well, if you don't know, El Capitan in Yosemite National Forest or National Park is 3,000 feet of just straight up cliff face.
Basically sheer rock.
And this kid climbed it with no ropes. Okay? So to prep for this thing, he climbed that thing for like 2 years using a rope. But he said he visualized himself on that rock face as he was climbing with the rope, with no rope.
You're going to think I'm stupid, Craig. Now you watched Free Solo, and I did too. That movie did not show him climbing without a rope, did it?
Yeah, Free Solo did. Yeah,
it did.
Oh yeah,
I do not remember him climbing.
And that was
movie.
That was the big thing. Is the guys who filmed it were friends of his, and they're like, if we're filming and he falls, what are we going to do?
Most of that was with him with a rope and his buddy there, right?
Most of it was with the rope. It was a story leading up to the actual climb. So yeah.
And at the end, it shows him climbing without that.
Yeah.
That clip was,
so
guys. I watched that movie. It was crazy.
I saw him on a late night TV show, Chris, and he said visualization was his biggest tool.
You're kidding me?
Nope.
I'll be darned.
Above all the food and stuff we've talked about, visualization is his, and he's the most successful free climber or free soloer in the history of the world.
And I'll make an argument, fresh out of my brain, honestly, in this moment. Can we say, it's a question, Craig, can we say that if you really needle into any one of these things on this list, pretty much, if you really get into it, even the one I said, having a pet, right? And if you really needle into, like, how do I get a pet? Therapy dogs are a big deal. I just saw John's therapy dog, his wife's therapy dog today.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, Bob the dog was in our office today. He was awesome. I haven't seen him in a while. You get really good and really focused in on any one of these. Can we say that might be the most effective one on this list for you?
Yeah, it could be. I would choose some things that worked, and get one thing down before you move on or add another thing, right?
These are skills.
I know we're running out of time, but let me tell you how I tie some of these together. So just to kind of reiterate my morning routine or ritual or whatever you want to call it, so I get up, I spend a few minutes reading some scriptures, just in silence. And then I do my journaling where I'm doing my gratitude practice and writing down these things, kind of prepping myself for the day. Then I go through the 20 minutes of box breathing that we talked about, Chris. And then I go through a future me visualization where I am visualizing myself, at a certain time frame down the road. Then I'm visualizing myself achieving my goals. Then I'm visualizing myself just going through the day and completing all the tasks that I want to do that particular day. Okay? And then I do some kind of movement, some kind of light yoga, maybe some burpees or just something to kind of get my blood flowing.
Gwen Wild talked about neurologically the benefits of body positions and moving, right?
Absolutely. And dude, I have a noticeably better day when I get up and go through that routine. My day is much better. I can tell a difference mentally if I just roll out of bed and start getting after it. If I get up late and don't do this practice, there's a noticeable difference in my mindset and how my day goes if I don't do that practice.
Absolutely. Craig, get ready to take us out of here. But I want to really help everyone understand, like, there is so much going on in the world today, and we want to be helpful. We really care about your mental health and the way that you're operating. We want to blow up stereotypes and myths, get good information out of there. I haven't talked about it probably enough, but we also really want to be helpful. I know there's a lot of people that are afraid out there. I know there's a lot of people that are struggling out there. I know there's a lot of people that are really struck with hard times. There's a lot of reasons for hard times right now, financially, racially, medically, familially, internally. There's a lot of ways that people really are having a hard time. And that's part of the reason why we designed this idea of the show today, because I had the news blues. It worked out well so as to go, look, you can be empowered to do things for yourself. You can feel well, feel empowered, using self-care, using breathing, using journaling, getting some exercise, getting friendships, having some nutrition, getting a 1-5-10-year plan, have a pet, visualization skills, tension release techniques, sensory answer to panic feelings, avoid using permanency words, introspectively challenge your assumptions, from time to time revisit stressful events in life, attack any fear. We didn't talk about vacations, but take short periods of time off was the main point there. How's that for a list, Craig? Take us out of here.
Lots
and
of
we'll
good
see you
stuff on that
guys
list, man.
next week with Burnout.
ThroughItTherapistIze.com, folks. You can find entries for each one of our episodes. Chris and I referenced a lot of those today on today's show. You can also get a copy of Chris's first chapter of his book if you sign up for our email list. And we usually just use that list to let you know when new shows are published, so we don't send a lot of spam or anything like that. Chris, what's that first chapter about, man?
I don't know offhand.
Really?
I don't know.
Good.
Caught me on the raw twice. I don't know.
Well, you wrote the book. I figured you'd know about it. Fear. Neil said it was fear. Anyway, you get the first chapter of Chris's book if you sign up for our email list. Would love for you to have that. You can also find links to our social media on the site. And I think that covers it.
Now
right?
I feel like I got to qualify. The reason why I don't know is because it's really they're short chapters, and I wasn't sure what quote we used or I used. It's not in any particular order.
How many chapters is it?
30 something, 32.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
32.
When's it coming out? When's
March is the main release date, but people will be able to pre-order and
it's on
and do some
Goodreads
things.
right now, right?
It is. You can look it up. I'm actually going to challenge the audience and see if we can coordinate a little trick to get everyone to do on the same time frame or the same day. So we'll be talking about it. It's
cool.
still a ways off.
Cool. I think I covered it. And Chris, you said we were going to talk about burnout on episode 97. So anything else, man?
That's it. Have a good week.
See you soon.